Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of 108 Sixes Baseball Talk. Hope everybody had a great Memorial Day. I know we weren't on last week. Got plenty to make up for tonight. Stan Huff will be on a little while. We'll talk about who we have at the moment. That's Eric Katz. Welcome back, Eric.
Good to be back.
And we have Taylor Phillips. Glad to have you back on.
Absolutely, yeah.
Trent Clark, Mr. Ring himself. You got him. All right, that boy wears him proudly. And George Icorn. Glad to have you back on,
All
George.
right. Yeah, thanks, Scott. Good to be on.
All right, the topic of the show is the perfect game that wasn't. It was an idea George gave me earlier. We'll talk about it a little later in the broadcast, but we have a lot of other news items I want to get to first. Stan Huff will be on it in a bit. So, this, in 2025, MLB's notable dates included the spring breakout game of March 13th to the 16th, and they had the Tokyo Series March 18th to the 19th. Opening day March 27th. We all know about that one. The All Star game will be coming up though, July 15th on Fox. The Speedway Classic in Bristol, Tennessee, August 2nd on Fox, and MLB's Little League Classic on the 17th. With that said, those are pretty interesting dates. I'll run it around the horn a little bit. Eric, which of these is the most interesting one of the group?
I'd say the one at Bristol, just because
Yeah.
it's just great for baseball to kind of play in a unique location. I know, particularly college football has been doing a lot of that for years, and college basketball has done that in the past. But especially when a few years ago when they played on battleships. Um, but it's it's definitely going to be fun. It's a unique location, especially a track like Bristol, and I think hopefully it will grow. It'll grow, and baseball will continue to go to more unique locations.
Taylor?
I would say the one in Bristol as well is going to keep helping growing everything like Eric mentioned, like the more baseball the merrier. You know, you know, the more opportunities that little leaguers get, or as they grow up, and so on and so forth.
Okay, fair enough. What about you, Trent?
Yeah, I'm excited about both of those actually. Like the new location concept, that's pretty cool. But I tell you, man, I don't know. There's much beats the Little League World Series. Like it's just it's the future, right? It's all the potential. I love the history of it, and I love the pageantry, and I love the traditions.
George?
Yeah, I'm going to agree with Trent. I mean, the Motor Speedway one is obviously very unique, first time ever. I get that. But as far as a tradition that baseball has established, oh man. And that Yankees Tigers game from a year ago on the Little League site. Oh my God, that was pretty good baseball, obviously for the whole country to see, national broadcast. And like I said, I love racing too, but I have to go with the Little League Classic again this year as a great event.
Amazingly enough, in most cases I go with Little League Classic, but I'm going to go on the side of racing because of the fact that I've been to Bristol Motor Speedway before when I drove some laps. They weren't real big laps during the holidays, and that banking on that track is unbelievable. So I can only imagine what it would look like. And when you're playing at Bristol Motor Speedway, they're going to have entertainment in the back of the track, and it's almost going to remind me of a game playing at the LA Coliseum. So that's when you look at what that whole demographics look like. So normally I'd say Little League, but when you put Bristol into the equation, I guess I have to lean towards Bristol. I want to bring Candy Evelyn. Give me your opinion on this one too.
You want me to?
Yeah.
I would say that I think. Oh, I don't. I think Bristol. I think just because it's a different venue and it's not known for baseball, so that's why I think it is a little intrigue for me.
Fair enough. Okay. Just curious. All right. Onwards we go. The LA Dodgers are a team that everybody can talk about America's team when it comes to the world's team. I got to give the Dodgers kudos for this one as they became the first MLB team to sign a player from South Sudan, 17-year-old right-handed pitcher Joseph Deng, who boasts a 95-mile-an-hour fastball. Trent, what are your thoughts about the Dodgers going the Dang route?
Well, I mean, dang, that's pretty hard for a guy out of Africa, man. Like, I think it's great. Again, I think we talked about this on the show about 2-3 weeks ago. It's
I
becoming
don't
a
remember,
melting
but we're
pot.
talking about it again. So go ahead, give me the Danish
Yeah,
opinion.
no, but the melting pot of like we keep seeing new countries represented, and
Right.
it's exciting. It really is a global game, and it's fun to see like what an opportunity for these kids to see someone from their country enter in over to the world, into the greatest show in baseball, right? In the major leagues and in the U.S. And so it's a great opportunity. It's another great opportunity to grow the game. And this is one of the continents that really hasn't seen a lot of baseball, right? So this
Right.
is going to be super exciting to expand into Sudan, and this guy will become lore if he hits the majors.
George?
Yeah, I think it's a great opportunity, like you said before, to expand things around the world. We all know the great Asia market and contributing to Major League Baseball, obviously, China, Taipei, Japan, South Korea. But in Africa, you have a lot of kids that obviously follow some of the sports, especially baseball, I think. And there's always the opportunity. And the fact that the Dodgers, and this isn't the first time the Dodgers have done it. I'm not trying to just salute the Dodgers here, but I think it is a real good gesture. And I think it is and they wouldn't sign the kid if they didn't think there was some potential in him. So the fact that they went after him, he's 6'7", 185-pound right-hander with a 95 miles per hour fastball. So they did their homework, obviously, it's just a great opportunity. It's a great story. I look forward, Scott, to seeing this young man try to make it big in baseball.
All right, Katie, go to the chat room. I like Joshua Door's couple of comments. I think this is funny, and the type of shows that we have, it's okay to put these two. Scotty Slapper, you got it, my man. Okay, hockey is huge in Africa. No, I'll tell you what, you give me some research, write a story on it, you'll make it believable. But you know what? It certainly was worth putting up for the sake of at least being able to have a few laughs about it. But Joshua, that'll be your next assignment here for South Florida Tribune. Give me a reason why hockey is huge in Africa, and I'll be more than happy to introduce it on as a topic just because you brought it up. Thank you very much for your comments in the chat room off to Mr. Philip 76. Philip 66, 76. I don't know. You have gas.
Every young up and comer deserves an opportunity. And that man that you mentioned, that's Joseph Dang, a 95 mile an hour fastball, 17 years old. Wow. Man, he's got to get his opportunity sometime in the near future. The question is when.
We'll find out. TBD. What does the baseball panel think of who's going to win the cup? I don't know. I think Trent likes to talk about hockey. We'll put that up, and Eric Katz will have the last word about Dang. Go ahead, Trent. Who do you think's winning? Edmonton or Florida?
I think that Oilers are going to come back with redemption this year and take the cup.
What about you, George?
I don't know. It's hard going against Florida right now, but no question about it. Connor McDavid and his team is hungry for a cup. Seven games. I'll go with the Oilers.
What about you, Taylor?
I'm still going to go with the Panthers. I'm thinking in 5 games. It's going to be deja vu. It's the Panthers are still too much. The Oilers, as hungry as the Oilers are, the Panthers have already proven too much, just like they have last year.
Eric?
I gotta go with probably Edmonton. I mean, it's been a while since Canada has won a Stanley Cup. I know Connor McDavid's hungry, and I'm sure that they're wanting to be the one to bring it home for Canada. So I got to go with Edmonton.
You know what? If Florida wins game 1 in Edmonton, I give it to the Panthers. If they can't win any games in Edmonton, then I definitely go with the Edmonton Oilers. Good job, Joshua. I actually like that. It's pretty interesting to bring that up. So with that said, Eric, go ahead and continue on, Mr. Dang. Then we're going to go ahead and bring on your rant.
Thank you, Josh.
I could, as far as I think it's great, more growth for the game. I know you'll see every so often that they'll find somebody in like a country not traditionally known for baseball. I know the Guardians did it with Yan Gomes, and he was a solid catcher for a little bit there for both the Guardians and the Cubs. I think it's great for the game. He could very easily become one of those great finds who ends up becoming a star. Hopefully the Dodgers can keep him healthy because they're known for putting a lot of pitchers on the injured list.
Fair enough. All right, we'll go over to Eric. Give a rant. Go ahead.
Man, to be the Colorado Rockies right now at 9-50, You actually got to try and do that. The last time this happened, none of us existed, and it was way before the time where Scott was slamming papers on people's desks.
Thanks a lot.
And it's just incredible. You actually legitimately have to try and be this bad. This has to be the most systematic and organizational failure, not just in baseball history, but sports as a whole. I probably put it up there with the 0-16 Detroit Lions back in 2008, and probably could make the argument that even though the Lions obviously at that time had players like Calvin Johnson and Roy Williams were a bit there, that this is gradually worse because there is nobody worth rooting for on that team. This team is pathetic. This team is awful. They are literally the skinny kid in gym class thinking he can play varsity basketball in the NL West. It's bad for the game. I'm sick of teams going after these infamous records, and it's just awful. And there's nobody who deserves this more than Rockies owner Dick Monfort, who seemingly has the real power over his general managers. He fires nobody. Some of those people have been there since the team was founded. This is awful. The fact that he's loyal to such a fault despite his team not performing. At this rate, he's lucky to have Coors Field. Otherwise, it would attract less fans than either the Athletics or the Rays.
Okay, well, all right. Brian Pitted. Hi, guys. How you doing? All right, this is for you, Joshua Dora. You eat spaghetti tonight? Why not? We'll talk food. I already had my food, so it don't matter. You have spaghetti. What do you have for dinner tonight, Aaron?
I haven't eaten yet.
Okay, well, Joshua gave you a dinner idea.
I had spaghetti, Scott.
All right, now, Joshua Dora, let me know. Joshua Dora, I don't really talk about alcohol on the show, but you know what? Because that question is kind of interesting. I was never a beer slammer, to be honest with you. But when I'll tell you, when I was in my group, Long Island iced teas were pretty good. Yeah, Cats is being his normal self, riled up, passionate. That's why he's on the baseball show. So there you go. There's your alcohol reference for the night, Joshua. I'm in a good mood because you're active and you're making a whole lot of sense tonight. Good stuff. As far as the Dodgers in Sudan, more power to them. We'll stay with the Dodgers thing. We'll go to a station break in a little bit. So here you have it. So the Dodgers history, 1981. They started 6-0, won the 1981 World Series. 2025, they started 6-0. Will they win the World Series again? Will history repeat itself, Mr. Katz?
I mean, no one has repeated since the Yankees did it during the late 90s, heading into into 2000. It's very hard to do because every single year, like we say, like we've had these great teams thinking that they're the next dynasty, like the Cubs and the Astros, and they never get it done. We thought the Braves would be that when they were going to their. We thought the Braves would get over the hump and eventually spark the dynasty, and they were always constantly at the door, but they never were able to get it done. It's going to depend on too if their pitchers can stay healthy, because right now they just got to have. Their pitching staff has a litany of injuries, and the Dodgers are a marked team this year. I can guarantee you, there's not a team in the National League postseason picture this year that wants to be the one to eliminate the Los Angeles Dodgers. It's going to be hard just because we haven't had a repeat winner in over 25 years.
Okay. By the way, Joshua Dora says I'm teaching you well. Yeah, well, thanks a lot. And he doesn't like baseball. Support show. We'll take that. Very nice. All right, what are your thoughts about the Dodgers 6-0? Can history repeat itself that the 6-0 team let them win it all, Taylor?
Well, like Eric said, it's very hard to do. Plus, you got contenders like the Tigers, Mets, Cubs, and Yankees. You're going to have to go through those teams if you're the Dodgers, and only time will tell. So it's 50. I'm leaning towards 50-50 on this one.
Okay, fair enough. Trent?
Yeah. For me, I think, it's a little bit of a, hokey kind of deal. Like, that's great that they did that in 81. I was just checking real quick because I thought the Phillies won in 81, but it turns out they won in 80. So I did get a chance to see the Dodgers this week. Saw them against my mighty Cleveland Guardians. And I saw the last game of that series, Tuesday's 1:00 game. a fabulous comeback from the Guardians to take the last game in that series, but otherwise pretty slanted series. And the one thing I do wonder about the Dodgers is, will the pitching hold up? It's going to be a very close watch at the trade deadline to see what happens there. I feel like if they don't get an arm or two, they won't have enough.
George?
Yeah, when you look at just a follow-up, good segue, Trent. Thank you so much, sir. So
Sure.
the Los Angeles Dodgers rank 11th. I'm not kidding you, 11th in earned run average in the National League, allowing 4.16 runs per game. And again, Cats, you made a good comment that pitching is just not the same for them. And there's no way now that I would pencil them in as an automatic, despite that bit of trivia, 6-0. Right now, they are really having a fight for their lives in their division. And good, that's good for baseball. So I would also go with 50-50 chance, not to sit on the fence, but what the hell? 4.16 team ERA. They ain't going anywhere with that, let me tell you right now. But again, the injuries, pitching staff, things are going to hopefully, if they hope for, better days ahead.
Well, it was an interesting stat. That's why I wanted to put it in there. So 6-0. One thing to start 6-0 in baseball in 162 games versus any other sport, it's a different animal, but it's certainly worth noting. Anytime I get some stats of historical significance, or worth doing it. Have a long ways to go, but worth hearing 5 opinions on it. All right, one thing I forgot to mention on our last show, the Minnesota Twins hadn't allowed a run in 33 straight innings, a franchise record. 5 teams had been eliminated from the NBA playoffs. The Vegas Golden Knights, Golden State Warriors, Boston Celtics, Winnipeg Jets, and Washington Capitals. So, Josh, if you're still on here, there's a little bit of a reference in hockey. But let's talk about the Minnesota Twins. This team's starting to get hot a little bit. They were a little bit colder earlier. And, when you go 33 straight innings without allowing a run, people start taking notice of it. So we'll lead off with you, Trent.
Yeah, I mean, for me, this is one of those things that, I can't believe 33 innings. I mean, when you think about that, it's over 3 full games. The Twins were not looked at as a real powerhouse in the Central, and all of a sudden, with pitching, everything changes, and all of a sudden, they're in strong consideration. And it's funny because 3-4 years ago, the Central's a doormat in the American League, and now we got the Twins coming on, you got the Tigers coming on, you got good baseball coming out of the Central right now. And I think it's going to be a big difference. We're likely to see a division leader and a wild card come out of the Central, which excites me. And so I'll tell you, man, I'm trying to think of how many organizations can top this. I know it's a record for the Minnesota Twins and their organization. I wonder how many of the 32 franchises what's their record for scoreless innings, because I'll bet that's top 5.
All right, George.
Yeah, and again, you look at the team earned run average. Minnesota's got theirs down to 3.32, which trails only Texas, Kansas City, and Detroit as far as the ERA goes. Let's not forget a simple fact. They really choked, okay? Tigers played like superstars. Remember last fall, August into September, and the Twins are the team that they beat out. They pushed aside to make the first round of the playoffs. The Tigers, that is. So they are still trying to put that in the past, obviously, and have a little revenge. And the fact that they're able to do that, 33, oh my God, that is an amazing stat. It really is. It shows you the depth and the quality they got, not only in the starters, but in the bullpen as well.
Taylor?
The Twins have good pitching, although they've lost 2 straight as of late. But I'd say it's still a battle. You got to go through the Guardians and the Tigers to get to the AL Central. And remember, the Twins had that long winning streak. I believe I'm the only guy on here to touch on that winning streak. At least 10 wins in a row. Holy cow! That is the highlight of the Twins' comeback thus far this year. But we'll see what happens down the road.
Eric?
I mean, the Twins, early in the year, they kind of started off to a rocky start. I actually wrote about this, saying the Twins were, given their just catastrophic second half last year. I thought that was lingering into this season. But they went on that long winning streak, and now they find themselves kind of in the postseason picture. But AL Central is no joke. You get it's going to be a tough grind. You got Detroit, which best team in the American League right now. You got Cleveland. Cleveland, man, they always have a chance. No matter who's no matter who's in that dugout, especially Stephen Vogt now has proven to be a great manager. They always got a fighting chance every time out. You've got, even though Kansas City has been a bit sluggish, that team could pitch. And, but it's going to be a dogfight in that division. I wouldn't surprise me if multiple teams, get out of that division and go to the postseason. So, it's obviously impressive, Twins are surprisingly, I always knew they had the closer, in Duran, but who could throw 100 plus miles an hour, but I wasn't expecting it from the rest of the team, which on paper you would probably look at as being, not bad, kind of okay, not bad, not good, but still surprisingly they're up there with the best.
Well, the only thing I'll say about this is Pablo Lopez was acquired by the Twins in a trade for Luis Arias. The Marlins actually got a good year out of it with Arias winning a National League batting title, and he's doing pretty good things in San Diego. But Pablo Lopez is a workhorse, and I saw the Twins over spring training. This team is a pretty interesting team with Rocco Baldelli as their manager. I wouldn't put nothing past this team. I just would not do it. We'll go to one other topic, go to a station break. Unfortunately, Stan Huff won't make it tonight. He's busy taking care of some other work-related issues. We'll bring him back at a later date, but we keep moving along. Kenta Maeda signed with the Chicago Cubs to a minor league contract. The Tigers signed him to a 2-year, $24 million deal. Didn't work out well in Motown. So let's talk about it, Eric. Kenta Maeda, some thoughts about him now landing with the Cubbies.
Good for him. Obviously in Detroit, I was actually at his final start last season when he was against the Twins, and the Twins absolutely just pummeled him, and the Tigers eventually took him out of the rotation. You can never have enough arms in baseball. I mean, it's a commodity to have. I mean, there's no such thing as too many arms, but hopefully the Cubs can get some use out of them, because I know the Cubs could definitely use the starting pitcher depth, especially with Justin Steele going down early in the season. So I think we'll see what the Cubs do. It's a kind of a low risk, high reward proposition.
All right, Taylor, you comment. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Aaron. Sorry.
I was going to say, because he has been good before.
Okay. Used to be. Yeah, you talked about it briefly on Wednesday. You talk about it briefly again, and I'll turn it over to everybody else, and then we'll go to our station break. Go ahead.
Yeah. Here's my problem with Kenta Maeda. Of course, the Cubs signed him to a minor league contract, as mentioned, but he allowed, again, two innings pitched, just 2, 4 earned runs, 4 hits, 1 walk, 1 hit by pitch in Iowa City, 0 strikeouts. All 4 runs were allowed in the first inning. The second inning, he pitched scoreless somehow. But really, I mean, come on. You got to prove more than that. It's just 1 inning. Kenta Maeda is terrible, period. He's still terrible, even in the minor leagues. And that 4 earned run performance in 2 innings pitched proved it.
Okay, fair enough. Trent.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's you're trying to catch lightning in a bottle. He's clearly at one point showed the potential of a $12 million contract annual. So, I mean, someone believes this guy's arm maybe that. I assume he's not hurt, and I assume that the Cubs are taking a flyer on him. On a minor league deal, it's all upside. So why wouldn't they sign a guy like this? The one thing that concerns me in all this is when you sign a guy like this who's made money in a guaranteed contract, I'm not sure there's motivation to be better. He could kill a clubhouse if he comes in and he's just not interested in getting better, happy to be somewhere, go running around with the boys and making trouble. And if that's the case and he's just hanging on, and he could be a real clubhouse cancer. I don't know this guy at all. So hopefully he's not that guy and he's making an earnest opportunity of this and a return to the majors. Only time will tell. I wouldn't write the guy off after 2 innings, Taylor, just yet. But certainly they're looking for something in this guy better than that.
No, really. They seriously need to work on Kenta Maeda and his potential, of course, because he seriously needs help. Period.
Well, I wouldn't write. I mean, I wouldn't say from what I've heard though, Maeda isn't a bad I don't think I wouldn't put him in the clubhouse cancer category, because there are worse people in this game than
No, he's not a cancer to the entire clubhouse. No, he just pitches terribly. That's all.
I mean, sometimes though, you get to a point in your career where you just lose it. You're no longer, your skills are deteriorating, and it could be the case with Kenta Maeda. Solid career up to this point. Unfortunately, in Detroit, it just didn't work out, and the guy's probably just at the end of his rope, trying to hang on, try and contribute, and if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out.
Well, in this game, Motor City, confidence is king. If he has lost his confidence, that is not a great spot for any athlete, let alone a pitcher. So when confidence leaves the body, it usually ends pretty soon after that. Now, you and I have all seen athletes return and get back to that confidence and find that somewhere else. So it's not that it doesn't happen. I think the Cubs have made a great move here, trying to see if that he may find it over there, because it's costing him very little to find out.
All right, let's go to the chat room real quick. You've said your piece on it, Taylor. Okay, I want to move the show through. Okay, unless there's something you want to mention. All right, let's go to the hellos out here. Let's go out right up top. We got Mickey Delaney, followed by one of my favorite people out here, Jen. So let's go to Mickey first. Candy, let's move it along, and then there's Mickey. Regular hi, Jennifer. You know how I feel about you. You're great. Looking forward to talking to you real soon. And go baseball. Love the content, Jen. You have a special place in my heart. Here's a woman that has such a special place in my heart, and I'll tell you why. She does a lot of great things for Parkinson's disease and deals with head trauma. And her and I met through a mutual friend, and now we have done some shows together without a doubt. And Jennifer, to me, there aren't enough genuine people out there like you. So thanks, Jennifer, for being loyal to me as well as our platform. And I look forward to talking to you soon. And one of these days, I hope we'll pass crowds, whether it's in Boca Raton or here, or somehow I make the track to St. Louis. So God bless Jennifer, and thanks again, Mickey, for coming in. And you guys rock while you rock, Jennifer. And I just want to make sure that they got a good description about that real beautiful woman, gem out in St. Louis, who used to be a St. Louis Rams cheerleader, by the way. How do you like that, Trent? And here, I don't know what it is about these blonde, but this one's a dynamite one.
How long? What years was she? What years was?
Hey, Jen, what year were you a cheerleader for the St. Louis Rams? Put that in there if you don't mind.
Were you there for the greatest show on turf years?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I think.
Of course, you got to be there for those years.
Yeah, I mean,
those are the final couple of years.
Oh, there you go. Inaugural season to Super Bowl. Yes, there you go.
And that's the Super Bowl I covered, by the way, in Atlanta.
Yeah, George was actually Jen at that Super Bowl, by the way. How do you like that?
Yeah, the Warner. Yeah, you got the Warner. You got the Warner years.
That's right.
Yeah, he got closer to you than I did. Kurt Warner. Look at this. There's my. I'll tell you what.
Oh yeah.
We miss you, but Jennifer Lee Cobb as he emerged as the sixth person on this show here.
Yeah, she got it all with Marshall Falk, Orlando Pace, the whole team. Ricky Prohl, Isaac Bruce.
All right, stop it, Eric. Come on. Listen, I didn't weigh in yet, Scott, and obviously I look at it this way: if Maeda could not perform better under the tutelage of Chris and the pitching coaches in Detroit, they gave him every opportunity to succeed, every opportunity for 2 years. Right now, it is the worst deal that young Scott Harris has made as tenure as Detroit Tigers president. I'll just leave it at that.
Mm-hmm. Well, all I'll say about Kenta Maeda for Chicago, it's an everything to gain, nothing to lose situation for the Tigers. It was a bad free agent signing. They know it. I'm sure hopefully when they landed some pretty good hurlers during this offseason. It's just everybody knew that Kenta Maeda, if you couldn't make it with Chris Fetters, it's going to be hard to make it with much of anybody else. With that said, we're going to go to a station break. Candy, go ahead.
Here's Candy.
South Florida Tribune Publishing Company published a book, Lessons from the Microphone, tuning into the enduring wisdom of visionary leaders. It is written by our host, Scott, the Motor City Madmouth Morganroth. And the foreword is written by George Eichhorn. Great book, gentlemen. It talks about Scott's 40 plus years in the media business and how it has evolved. Get your copy today, available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kindle, Google, and Apple Books. There's also a link on our website, www.southfloridatribune.com, where there is a plethora of great other content. Go check it out. If you like to listen to podcasts, you can find us wherever you get your podcasts. If you see the little red subscribe button in that lower right-hand corner, it means you haven't subscribed to us yet. Don't know what you're waiting for, but do it now. And then click share, like with all your friends and family, anybody you think would enjoy it. If you want to advertise or sponsor a show, you can call Scott 954-304-4941. And if you want to be a guest or have topic ideas, you can always email us at southfloridatribune@gmail.com.
All right, we'll go ahead back to another Tigers team. I have some great stuff coming out of Miami with the Marlins. We'll get to that. And, of course, the perfect game that wasn't. We're going to get to that shortly. So, with that said, we'll talk about Riley Green, his first play in MLB history with 2 homers in the ninth inning of a game. A pretty interesting feat how Riley Green was able to do it. All right, we'll start off with you, George.
Well, yeah, Scott, that was a great feat by Riley Green. And it is kind of a remarkable thing. You think of all the years in baseball history, obviously. And, and the kid's he's a workhorse. He really is. He wants to be in that lineup every day. I heard AJ say the other day that, some of these guys, they don't want to hear that from me about they're getting a rest today and that sort of thing. And Riley was one of the players that he mentioned in that short, brief interview. But this is a feat. That is an accomplishment that I have never heard before. And kudos to him. Just a great, great opportunity to get in the record books, Riley.
What about you, Trent?
Well, it's kind of a misnomer, right? Like, usually 9th innings are very short. And usually the first home run is usually a walk-off if it happens, right?
Right.
So, it's obviously the top of the 9th, scores running up and, you could pinch hit for a guy. There's all sorts of different things that could happen inside that it's not likely to get a second home run, which proves, kind of the, uniqueness of this record. And, quite frankly, in the history of baseball of like however many years we have recorded now of, I think of 130 plus, it's kind of staggering that no one had actually hit 2 home runs in a 9th inning. But, so that's a pretty unique record and probably one that's going to stand for a long time, it sounds like.
Okay, Taylor.
And that was in Denver at Coors Field against the Rockies, the Colorado Rockies. That was a month ago. Holy smokes. They scored a lot of runs. Riley Green with his 2 home runs. What was the highlight of it? But even he had help from the rest of the offense. I'm like, man, you got to take advantage of the worst team in the team with the worst record in baseball, right? And the Tigers offense, let alone thanks in large part to Riley Green, did just that. And Riley Green made history. He also hit that Little League home run, of course, at Comerica Park, which has scored a single E9. But Riley Green's making history all over the place in Detroit. 24 RBIs in May. He's just a machine.
See, Taylor, what's interesting about what you said? You're right. It happened a month ago. There's a reason why fate told us to wait, because Eric Katz had his Colorado Rockies rant earlier today, and now he gives them another reason to rant about Riley Green hitting that home run, and he gives them another reason to talk about Colorado, right, Eric? What are your thoughts about Riley Green's feat?
Oh, he is. I mean, in the age of resting players often. I mean, I didn't think we'd be able to see something like that because generally when the scores racked up and the game is won, you start to see guys coming out the ball game and giving guys who would be on the back end of the 26-man roster a chance to go out there and play. But good for Riley Green, man. That guy, Riley Green's a stud. I mean, he's been a big part of the Tigers. I mean, he's having a fantastic season. Arguably you could probably put him in the All-Star game. And he also had that little league home run, which I personally laughed at, given it was against the Boston Red Sox, and it's just great to see. I mean, it just shows you that the Colorado Rockies will be forever. Their 2025 season will be forever ingrained in our brains, even as a lot of us, including myself, get older.
Fair enough. Riley Green's the future. Now, where did he come from? The great state of Florida. So, the Tigers obviously a team with a good young core, and I credit people maybe wonder about it. Al Avila did a pretty good job drafting, even though he went through some lean years here. And Riley Green was one of those types of players. Okay, the topic of the night, we lead off with it. The game that wasn't perfect. On this date, Armando Gallaraga lost a perfect game because of Jim Joyce's botch call. George Eichhorn, it's only fitting you start off with it. You reminded me of his day. But what I'm going to say is we could talk about that day. But the second question is, as does everybody on this panel think that they should, Rob Manfred went ahead and reversed the decision to have Pete Rose and company be eligible for the Hall of Fame. So the second part, while everybody's waiting, should they just go ahead and say, let's get history right and change it? But George, that's a controversial one. That'll be good. Yeah. And when Stuart Hack actually comes on, a couple of these topics, I'm going to bring up to Stuart next week because they're that good. But I wanted Taylor and Huff at that point to comment. But there'll be a couple repeat topics that will emerge next week. George, first of all, what are your thoughts about Gallaraga?
It's amazing. He kept so cool. He really did. He was very professional during the whole episode. What happened? The smile on his face, kind of exasperation smile when Jim Joyce made the wrong call at first base. And then the fact that we know, I'm not going to go through the whole story, but we all know that the umpire went and apologized, to Armando at the Tiger dugout after the game. I'm sorry, clubhouse. And that whole thing about the next day, and they shook hands. But the fact of the matter is that if you do that, you're opening up Pandora's box. If the commissioner was going to step in and do that right away, there could be other instances where, what about this play? What about that? What about when Harmon Killebrew did that? Or what about when Babe Ruth did that? I mean, you're not going to go back and do that again. So I guess the decision would have had to been by the commissioner immediate. He didn't have that kind of gumption to do, and I don't blame him. I'm sorry about it. Everybody's sorry about it. He should have been granted the perfect game. But I think two classy guys there settled it for themselves, but obviously the fans still hated. And I don't appreciate fans in any sport making calls and trying to harass an umpire or an official after the game. And there were some Tiger fans that did do that. But the fact of the matter is it was a wrong call. Period.
Okay, fair enough. What do you think, Trent?
Yeah, man, I am totally in George's camp on this, like 100%. I mean, this is it's unfortunate, right? But I'll tell you that what class it was handled with. I mean, Gallaraga really showed a maturity that I don't think anybody really expected. And you know what? I think the story gets better every year. There's a lot of perfect games no one really ever talks about. Everybody talks about this on June 2nd. And I think Jim Joyce is a pretty good umpire. And I think it was a class move on his part going over and saying, listen, I botched the call. They did the press conference that next day. I think it's actually more value to show everybody and these little kids, like, we're not perfect people. And perfect is a thing we're all shooting for. And it doesn't go our way sometimes. And the grace and the ability to roll with it and forgiveness is a really important thing. So I think there's a lot more positive attributes to this whole story than the fact that there's 5 guys that threw a perfect game in their career, and we don't talk about them every year. In fact, it doesn't even come up. This one comes up every year.
Yeah, we do. Okay, what do you think, Taylor?
Well, I remember how it played out, and I want to touch on a little bit more. It was a ground ball towards second base. Actually, Miguel Cabrera actually just sprinted out to get that one and then try to make the play to Gallaraga. But I thought Cabrera should have let that second baseman get the ground ball and just make an easier play to Cabrera for what could have been an easier out. That way, none of this controversy could have happened.
All right.
But hey, everyone's human. Like like y'all touched on.
All right, Eric, what do you think?
Now, I mean, a lot's been written about this over the years. Books have been published about it. I mean, I even wrote something about it a little while ago too. But there's no change in it. What about Milt Papas's near perfect game?
Yeah.
I mean, we're like that'll. I mean, there were a few strikes that were right in there, and Milt Pappas, obviously a no. Don't get me wrong, a no hitter is still is a pretty good feat, but it's not a perfect game. But what about him? The umpire. There was the umpire. I forget his name. Botched that game, and the fact that how it was handled though is what we're still talking about, because that could have been a really ugly scene at Comerica Park that night. I mean, I remember seeing it where the cameras was all over the place, all over the field, even in Dombrowski's box at the time. But it's you just can't. Was it an unfortunate event? Yes. Was it an out? Yeah. Was it an out? Yes. But we're we're still talking about it. I mean, it's almost like it was better than a perfect game. Besides, Armando Gallaraga throughout his career up to that point really wasn't that great of a pitcher. He was just mediocre to okay at best, but even had he thrown the perfect game, we would have forgotten about it and he would have been lost in baseball history. But the fact that his name keeps coming up over and over again, it's almost just as good as that he didn't throw a perfect game, and that he has a place in baseball history that he would otherwise have been forgotten. But Pete Rose and Gallaraga are two different things. Rose is dead, and you can't really enforce the ban anymore. And Gallaraga, though, it's just too old to do. You can't. It's unfortunate. We have the technology now, and probably had it back then and didn't use it, but it's unfortunate. But the fact that we're still talking about it, it's actually better than the perfect game.
Okay, Trent, you have something you want to add?
Yeah, I mean, and I love the point that Eric brought up about how it was handled. Seems to be really the story, right? Because let's talk about a similar situation that went different. The Bartman foul ball, where all of a sudden there's contact, total darkness enters that Chicago, stadium at Wrigley Field on a night in October that goes haywire. And this could have easily done that. This could have easily became this dark venture of just hatred and spewed all this stuff, and they resolved it quickly and suppressed it and put it to bed. And obviously the 30 for 30 shows that really never got settled in Chicago very well. And so I mean, what an example of a contrast of a 180 of two very unfortunate events shaking out and how they ended very differently.
All right, so this is where I'm going to disagree with everyone on this panel.
Ooh, love
I
it.
am.
Motor City.
I disagree with everybody on this panel. Number one, okay, I do feel that if Rob Manfred is going to make massive changes in MLB, whether it's a ghost runner, whether it's pace of game or whatever, every now and then, if it's that obvious, you can change that call. Because what we all have to understand is because of that play, okay, we all say, well, we're talking about it so many years later. You're right. But why are we talking about it so many years later? Because this finally got MLB to wake up about implementing the replay system. And it would have been turned over 10. Then the guy would have gotten his perfect game. This is so darn obvious, it should be overturned later. I really believe because it helped with advanced technology. Now, I like the fact there's so many people nodding their head. That's why this is such a good show, because we all have contrasting opinions. And I'm not going to be the yes man that says I'm making this unanimous, but I'm not, because it's such a good topic, Icorn. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to even have Stuart Hack talk about it next week on this edition. We're going to carry it over. He's the only one that will talk about it, as well as the next topic I'm about to bring. So I understand it comes up every year. When Icorn put it in my box today, I was intrigued. It so happens to fall on a day for which we are broadcasting, what made it even sweetener to be able to talk about. But I think it should be overturned. I really did, and I think he should get a perfect game. And think about the guys that get the no-hitters in the perfect games are the ones you rarely hear about. My opinion. I mean, you see a lot of them. How many great players get those? That's one thing. But here's a guy, in my opinion, okay, that is known for all the wrong reasons. And Jim Joyce, yeah, all right, everybody go out there and give you a little bit of love. Everybody has the old hanky to wipe off the tears. I get it. He's disgraced forever because of a botch call, because he really is. I mean, if that isn't obvious. Listen, I have glasses. I know my eyesight's bad. Like, come on, Jim. Really? Seriously? Really? And at least that one wasn't aimed at George Eichhorn. It was Jim Joyce. Get it right. Okay, Eric, go ahead. Let me have what you think.
Well,
I know you can disagree with me, but no, I don't care.
Well, here's the thing, though. That situation that night at Comerica Park in Detroit against the then Cleveland Indians was arguably more catastrophic than the 2003 NLCS between the Chicago Cubs and the then Florida Marlins. Wow, we've got a lot of thens in there. Damn, mold. But you know, on that situation, Steve Bartman hasn't gone back to Wrigley Field since, and he wasn't even at the parade when they won the World Series 13 years later. It's you know, the real villain of that story was not Steve Bartman that night. The real villain of the Cubs story was Alex Gonzalez botching the double play, which is what ultimately screwed the Cubs in that game. Bartman just got the flack though because there were 5 outs to go, and the other villain was Dusty Baker, who kept Mark Pryor out there too long at 130 plus pitches. Imagine seeing that today. It's that situation has just even with the Cubs winning the World Series, some people still have not let that go. This situation was about a pitcher who probably was on the highest of highs at that point in his career because he really was kind of just clinging on to a roster spot at that point with the Tigers because he really hadn't established himself as a starter on any team and wouldn't even after the Tigers. You know, it's a beautiful story. We're still talking about it. He's got a place in baseball that he otherwise wouldn't have had. Had he thrown the perfect game, we odds are we would forget about it after a while. Even the most recent perfect game with Domingo Germán, we don't talk about anymore. The story just keeps on getting better as it ages. There's no way you should be giving those away. If they were to give that away to what they say, you know, gave Armando Gallaraga his perfect game, what does that say to Milt Pappas? Milt Pappas should have had a perfect game. That the umpire, even though he was throwing it right on the black of the plate, the umpire wasn't giving it to him. Even the umpire to this day regrets it. But the fact that it was handled with such class by Gallaraga and such class by Jim Joyce, who actually during that for a long time was one of the better umpires in the league, you know, it is just a story that keeps on getting better. Why would you want to ruin that just to have his name on the list of on the hallowed list of perfect games? We're not talking about those guys anymore, even though we've got several great pitchers on there, like Noel, like you know, I think Randy Johnson as well as Mark Burley. We don't talk about those games, even though Mark Burley's is pretty iconic given the Dwayne Weiss catch. It's, you know, this story is actually the imperfect game is a lot better than the perfect game.
Well, you know what? You really are, to me, unbelievable when it comes to debating. But I'll tell you the reason why I say it's the right thing to do, and we'll end it there because we could do a show on it. But I love Eric's opinion on it. I think everything Eric says is on par. I think it's just simply the right thing to do. Period. With that said, and by the way, for the record, the Colorado Rockies did beat the Miami Marlins 6-4 tonight. So the Rockies get one against the Marlins, and we'll segue to the Marlins right now. Candy and I were over covering the Marlins and the Giants series over the weekend. And even though Justin Verlander didn't pitch for the Giants, Clayton McCullough talked about Justin Verlander. So go ahead, run it, Candy.
Clayton, I know that Justin Verlander is not pitching in this series, but how much do you like what he's done in his career as a whole? We know he's a future Hall of Famer. I know he's trying to get 300 wins, but talk about his career and then the fact that wouldn't it be a luxury if he had a guy like him mentoring the younger pitchers?
I think, you know, Justin has had a magnificent major league career. I think, you know, anyone that type of longevity, you don't luck into that length of a career. And, you know, the type of success he's had, he's certainly, as you mentioned, put together a Hall of Fame worthy resume. And, you know, Justin has been doing it at a very high level for a long time on a lot of winning teams. You know, so yeah, Justin's had a great career.
And wouldn't it be something if you could mentor younger pitchers? Because it looks like he's doing that right now with the Giants, even though he's inactive right now. You know, any pitcher can draw off this guy.
I think you take anyone that has a track record of success that can still get major league hitters out. Those kind of guys probably help a lot of pitching staffs and teams.
There you go. From the manager himself. Eric, what are your thoughts about the perspective that McCullough gives on Justin Verlander?
I mean, obviously, it's Justin Verlander is a Hall of Fame pitcher. It's amazing how he was able to evolve his career from being a power pitcher to a guy who to a power pitcher to a guy who can get guys out with the off speed stuff. Going from a power pitcher to a more to adding more finesse to your game is not an easy thing to do. Not everybody can do it, but having a guy like Verlander in a clubhouse who's been through it enough over the years and has had a tremendous amount of success in two different places, that's easy to draw from because pitchers can learn from that. Verlander has done it. He's had a lot of success over the years. He's been through the plenty of highs, that a lot of the highs and lows that this game has to offer. And it's something, and him knowing all the information, man, if I'm a young pitcher, I'm sitting by that guy daily in the bullpen.
What about you, Trent? Trent?
Can't hear you.
Trent's muted too.
Yeah,
muted.
I think
there he is, unmuted.
Sorry about that. Muted. Yeah, I mean, Verlander, I'm first of all, I'd love to see his continued success. As a guy, I so much agree with in the interview, the saying of you've got a veteran guy who's done it. Maddox did the same thing, had huge impact over with the Padres in the end of his career, even though he's not the dominant powerhouse that he was as a pitcher in his Cubs and Braves days. I think the influence is significant. With these guys' age, what's funny is you got kids that are they haven't been born. 17-year-old Dang. I mean, this guy, I think, won a World Series before this guy was born.
Right.
It's crazy when you see the longevity of a guy like that. And I tell you, longevity is wisdom, right? These guys are engaged in it with the best in the world. There's hyper learning going on all the time. I mean, the guy's knowledge base is so incredible. Part of it is if you get a guy like that at the end of their career, it's like having another coach, an expensive one at that. But yeah, man, I love this guy, and wish him all the best. And I'm gonna try to catch him this year sometime, hopefully, in the hopes that I'll catch him on the bump one of these times this year before it's over.
Fair enough. George and Eric, you've already commented on him, right? Is that correct?
Yeah.
He has, yeah. No, that was good questioning, Scott. I'm proud of you. That was very good.
Thanks.
And I know, JV obviously has a great place in Detroit sports history. We all know that, Tiger history. And it was unfortunate to see this happen with his arm and the injuries that he's racked up the last a couple of years. The Giants, of course, some of you know, came into town, and unfortunately he wasn't even in the ballpark because he's injured right now.
Well, he's actually in the dugout is what he was. I saw him in the dugout.
Okay. Yeah, the injury factor, I guess nobody could have predicted that, but you think about all the games, all the extra games this man has pitched, and playoff games, and in World Series and everything else, regular season, that arm of Verlander's is just quite remarkable. And yes, I agree. He does have a lot to teach the young players. He does have a lot. He is worthy of that, and he does act like another coach. I echo those sentiments exactly.
Okay, Taylor.
Yeah, I remember Verlander's 2 no-hitters against the Brewers and the Blue Jays. Of course, Verlander was such an elite pitcher in his prime. And yes, he can teach every young up-and-comer in the majors everything about pitching, the art of pitching, as in the immortal words of Jim Price. And Justin Verlander is going to be a Hall of Famer one day.
Okay. Well, I've said my piece to the manager, so I'll leave it at that. Just a little side note. Yesterday, Candy and I went to Lou Gehrig's Day over at Marlins Park, Low Depot Park. And guess what happened? This Marlin sensation, you're going to hear more and more about him. His name is Xavier Edwards, goes 5 for 5. This guy, and I've seen this guy hit the cycle. You don't have to comment on him. Just an FYI, Xavier Edwards is a stud. He steals bases. He gets on base. And I'll tell you, this kid, you watch out. And I'm glad that they have Lou Gehrig Day talk about ALS. I think that's really good stuff. Trent, this is one I think has your name written all over it. During a Florida State League game this year, the single-A Jupiter Hammerheads threw 267 pitches in their 9-inning game, issued 22 walks and a 19-5 loss to Dunedin. 5 pitchers threw 267 pitches and 121 strikes. Ouch! If you're a young friend, that's a lot. Trent, you've obviously worked in that behind the scenes. What are your thoughts about what took place there?
It's the same stats of my 12U house league team, I think, last weekend. I mean, this is amazing that these are professionals. I think back to the 10-win Colorado Rockies, who just kind of finally hit double digits. Please bring relegation into Major League Baseball. Please bring some absolute standards, because how in the world are we signing kids that throw 270 pitches, 121 strikes, meaning 146 balls? Like, how do you play defense behind that? You don't, because you've been standing for like 8 pitches in between any activity. It's an absolute cluster. This is so embarrassing, because this is the line of literally like a 12U game of like, earning, like learning game, like learn to play game. This is not even like 12U travel baseball will run circles around these kids that actually know the game and know the fundamentals. So like, I mean, this is just staggering to me when you see something, a professional game associated with 22 walks. It's embarrassing. It's an embarrassing thing. It's shocking.
Yeah, that's why I brought it up. It is bad. All right, George.
Yeah, I echo the sentiments there expressed by Trent. I mean, these are the type of situations that, are really mind-boggling when you hear about them. So I really think that I don't have any more to add about it at this time, but it is an interesting story. But no, I don't want to talk anymore about it. I'm all talked out on that. No, I'll pass it on, Scott.
Fair enough. Eric?
God, I mean, we're not just the way they teach kids these days. It's in players in general. The development's just awful now. I mean, we're teaching catchers to catch on one knee when all that can happen is a wild pitch can go, a pass ball or a wild pitch, whatever you want to call it, can easily go behind the backstop and the runner can take a couple extra bases. We're not teaching pitchers how to pitch anymore. We just want them to go out there and chuck it 100 plus miles an hour until his elbow falls off and he's getting under the knife for Tommy John surgery. I wish that more pitchers were like Ryan Yarbrough was the other night, where he's not going to wow you with his stuff. He's not going to be popping he's not going to make the glove pop like a cannon, but he's just getting guys out. I saw him dice up the other night. I saw him dice up the entire top of the Dodgers lineup with the way he was pitching. It was almost like he was the living Bugs Bunny against the Gas House Gorillas. It's just awful the way we're teaching kids now. I just think that we're teaching kids to try and steal strikes when all that's going to lead to is a broken wrist because you're going to get caught on the backswing. I think that to me it's just. I think just reform needs to happen with the way we're teaching kids at all levels, even at the professional level. Kids need to learn how to pitch again. We need to get their arms actually used to throwing it, and not encouraging 14-year-old kids to be chucking rocks at 89 miles an hour. And we need to get away from the radar guns. I'd rather that guy who throws at 70 miles an hour induces weak contact and get guys out. Guys are so used to seeing power pitchers that when they see a guy like Ryan Yarbrough, he makes them look incredibly stupid in the box. I know he did that to Ohtani last night.
All right, we're going to go to our final topic of the night. And this is the final topic. Everybody have their final parting shot. Kenny Lofton, Hall of Fame, 299, 2,428 hits. RBI, 781. Wait, no, let's try that again. 299, 24, 28 hits. RBI. You have, let's see, 781 home runs, 130. There we go. We got it all. Cleveland Indians. We'll talk about the guy who used to work for the Indians, and that's you, Trent. What do you think about Kenny Hall of Fame? Kenny Lofton. Think he should get in?
And I think he should get in. I think he should get in. I think he was an impact player, leadoff guy, one of the best in the game at the time. Played for a lot of different teams and had impact. Right up to the very end of his career, he was still making big difference. So Lofton stood a little bit of the test of time. Great athlete, sixth man on Arizona's Final Four team and national championship team in basketball. And for me, this guy, played the game right. Came to play every day, played hard. Center fielder, probably underrated on the defense. Not a great arm, but the guy could absolutely track stuff down, get it in quick. So, part of that Hall of Fame, we're always looking at the offensive numbers. I think some of the intangibles are the fact, like, this guy was an absolute on-base percentage guy, making a lot of things happen, a lot of the intangibles on the bases, and then I don't think you can disregard his defense.
No question about it. So let me just clarify the stats real quick before I turn it over to George. So he had a 299 average at 2,428 hits, RBI 781, home runs 130, and with the Indians. Just want to make sure I got that fact cleared up. George, obviously you've seen a lot of them when he played against the Tigers. What are your thoughts about Kenny Lofton?
Yeah, he's a good ball player, very good ball player. But again, this is the Hall of Fame of Hall of Famers, not the guys that are close. I have to leave him in the category of closeness. And one of the main reasons is because the RBI count to me is too low, 781. I know that you don't have to be a 3,000 hit guy anymore to get in, and you don't need a guy that obviously is going to be hitting 400 home runs. Those days I understand are gone. But the fact of the matter is that Kenny Lofton was a very good player, but I just don't see him being a Hall of Famer. And I don't think that the special committees that are all set up for all this to review again, I don't see his name mentioned enough to warrant more interest. And that being said, there's a lot of other ones, but I'm not going to go into the other ones because you just wanted to talk about Kenny Lofton. He was still a very good ball player, but not a Hall of Famer.
I think his OBP is more valuable than his RBIs. A guy who hits leadoff, your first at bat in every game, has no chance except for one run to be driven in, which he did. Hit a number of leadoff home runs, so he's got solo shots. But I would see in this situation, I would see his on-base percentage much more valuable than RBIs.
That's fair enough. I like both points. So what about you, Taylor?
Kenny Lofton should definitely be in the Hall of Fame, of course.
Yeah.
He was a speedy runner, racked up a lot of stolen bases, hit a lot of home runs. He was a total machine, of course. I remember us talking about Kenny Lofton a couple weeks ago, I think. Kenny Lofton, he was like a hot rod for those then Cleveland Indians, of course. There was no stopping him ever. Kenny Lofton gets my Hall of Fame vote unanimously.
All right, Eric.
I mean, problem with the Hall of Fame now is they really look at home runs and RBI. They value that a lot more than stolen bases. I mean, Kenny Lofton obviously was just an absolute menace on the base pass, and was your classic leadoff hitter, but not enough home runs, not enough RBI. I mean, still great. Just probably one of the greatest leadoff hitters of all time, but it's not. But I don't think it's enough to warrant Hall consideration. He's Hall very good to me.
Okay, the way I see it,
I can compare him to Ricky Henderson, for goodness sake. Ricky Henderson
do it all.
Stolen bases too,
Well,
and
Ricky
he made the Hall of Fame.
Well, Ricky also could hit for power.
Yeah, that's true.
All right, here's what I think about this, and then we'll go to our final station break, and everybody can go out there and talk about where they get a hold of. I only consider Lofton under the following condition: Don Mattingly has to get in first. Don Mattingly needs to get in first. Don Mattingly is long overdue. He played on some bad Yankee teams. We all know what he did for the 13-year career until it ended by injury. His body of work, to me, is really, really good. And then maybe Lofton, like Eric said, the Hall of very good. Those numbers are, like Eric says, you go by home runs on power is really what gets you in. I don't know. I mean, I realize the on base percentage that Trent alluded to is important. Go ahead, Trent.
Yeah, I think Cassie brings up a good point. If we're going to consider the Hall of Fame, different roles for different players, runs scored, on base percentage, stolen bases, putouts. I mean, these are kind of stats that we'd have to look at the Hall of Fame by position, as opposed to because I agree with you on Don Mattingly as well. Right, like
Right.
Don Mattingly should be looked at that, but like, oh, by the way, Don Mattingly, a fabulous defensive first baseman, but
Right.
but at that time, first baseman were supposed to hit 40 home runs a year, and he didn't do that. He just hit 340. I mean, like, come on,
Exactly.
the guy was an absolute production machine. And
Yeah.
so, listen, productivity matters, and we got to look at the right stats. I
Right.
think Eric Cassie really nailed this, but I think we're looking at the wrong stats.
I think also too with him, if you want to get away with getting the Hall of Fame as like a classic leadoff hitter, you got to hit you got to get 3,000 hits, and Kenny Lofton didn't.
Yeah, that's fair.
I
A lot more
agree.
chances. A lot more chances.
But I'll
Let's
tell
include
you,
all the stats.
it's worth debating though. I think Kenny Lofton's a heck of a player. We all know that he's a speed guy, a defensive guy.
He was too much.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was. I mean,
wanna walk
Tigers saw the guy 19 times a year. Thank God they went out there and reduced the division scale to 12. Oh my gosh!
But
He's a good player.
when you talk about the motor of the Cleveland Indians, he was the absolute ignition. Man,
Right.
everything started with that guy. It was like and by the way, could control a stereo in the clubhouse better than anybody, by the way. And so like
Really?
just another little sidebar on Kenny Lofton. But this guy started the key. The engine got revving, and it all started going. And then you'd bring the big Tommy and the guys behind him and Manny. And man, by the time the big engines started roaring, like you're down 6-0.
I think too that he also with where he played, especially during his time in Cleveland, and during his time in Cleveland, you could probably argue that the guy got overlooked as well, including the one season in Atlanta where that team had a lot of studs on that team as well. So you could probably argue that he was overlooked because he also played with some just outstanding ball players for their time too. And sometimes you just end up in that era where you're just being overlooked. I mean, you could probably say the same thing about Willie Randolph.
Well, great points all the way around. So I'm going to do something that I normally don't do here. And I'm going to give you guys a chance to pick one topic that you like the best tonight. How does that sound of this group?
Mm-hmm.
And that's this. All right, Eric, which one stood out to you for you tonight?
Gallaraga.
Okay. What about you, Taylor?
I'm going to go with Riley Green.
Okay. Fair enough. All right. What about you, Clarky?
I always like the Hall of Fame discussions, man. I think they're great debates, and and as much as I love Kenny, I really appreciate George's comments. There's so many great ball players. He's right on an edge, and the actual debate of him not being a 3,000 hit guy is legitimate, and so I love these legitimate debates.
Yeah, all right. That might be a new segment we're going to add beginning every week. What topic everybody liked at the end of the night. I like to get feedback. George, what about you?
Well, I gotta have to go with Gallaraga and Jim Joyce because I
Okay.
see in that, just as Trent explained earlier, the drama of it, but the personal and the involvement of these two individuals in trying to rectify something that was wrong. And anyways, enough said. But yeah, I'll go with the Gallaraga and Joyce thing.
And I'm going to differ from every one of you guys again. Not like we started off with the MLB notable dates, because we talked about Bristol Motor Speedway and the Little League World Series. My goodness.
That was a
Yeah,
good
I
one
think
too.
that was pretty interesting there. How you can compare a racetrack that holds 100,000 plus. If you've ever, and again, I was there visiting a friend out in that area, and the banking on that track is unbelievable. I can only imagine the show they're going to put on. But the entertainment on the back end of that track with a baseball field, it reminds you of the LA Coliseum. And we all know about the Little League World Series and how that fits in. So, pretty interesting to get feedback. That'll be a new segment every week that I can run to the panelists and set up parting shots. What topic did you enjoy the best? Because that gives me a feel for what we end up putting there. We'll have more Hall of Fame topics. Just to give you a preview for next week's show, we're going to talk about Joe Torre's potential Hall of Fame as a player, and we'll also talk about Jazz Chisholm, who talks about baseball. being a white sport. I want to get onto it tonight. I felt we had a lot of other things I wanted to address tonight that were important. We'll leave a little bit for Stuart Hack next week, and we'll go from there. So those are things that we're going to hold over for next week. Meanwhile, I'm glad we were able to get what we were able to get. Stan Hub not in there. We'll bring him back at a later date. But Candy, give us one last station break.
South Florida Tribune Publishing Company published a book, Lessons from the Microphone, Tuning into the Enduring Wisdom of Visionary Leaders. It is written by your host, Scott, the Motor City Madmouth Morganroth, and the foreword was written by George Eichhorn, another panelist. Great book, gentlemen. Get your copy today. It talks about how media has changed over Scott's 40 plus years in the business. It's available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kindle, Google, and Apple Books. There's also a link on our website, www.southfloridatribune.com, where there is a plethora of great content. Go check it out. If you like to listen to podcasts, you can find us wherever you get your podcasts. If you see the red subscribe button in that lower right-hand corner, click it, like us, share us with all your friends and family. Monday nights, we talk baseball. Tuesday nights, we talk football. Wednesday and Thursday nights, you just never know what's going to be on tap. So tune in to find out. If you want to advertise or sponsor a show, you can call Scott 954-304-4941. And if you want to be a guest or have topic ideas, you can always email us at southfloridatribune@gmail.com. Back to you, Scott.
All right. Taylor Phillips, let everybody know how they get a hold of you.
I'm the creator of the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast. Subscribe to its YouTube channel at the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast. Also listen to it in audio form on Spreaker, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music /Audible, Castbox, Deezer, Podcast Addict, Podchaser, and Giles Savin. Also follow it on social media on X, Instagram, Threads, and TikTok at Michigan_Truth, and like its Facebook page.
Eric, you're next.
You can follow me on my X account at Sports Team News, where I tweet all things baseball, and check out my blog at BaileyOutSports.com, where I write about all things baseball. And if you think I hate your team, yes, I despise your team.
Okay. Trent, you have a book. Talk about that.
Yeah, Trent Clark. You can reach me at Trent at leadershipity.com. That's leadershipity.com. My book is Leading Winning Teams, written and published by myself, published by Wiley, and all those sports stories, all the values of being an athlete and how you transition from athlete to career. And there are tons of things there. I speak all over the world on the weight of the ring and winning, and Winners Find a Way, which is also the name of my award-winning podcast, Winners Find a Way, which you can catch up on all the major channels. So find me.
All right, George, go ahead.
All right. I write for the South Florida Tribune. Look for me under the contributors section, and also locally for the Detroit Downtown Monitor. You'll find my sports columns. At the end of my column is a link to my book. Well, we're talking about books. Detroit Sports Broadcasters on the Air. And we have some great guys. Ty Tyson, Ernie Harwell. You talk about baseball guys. George Kell, Al Kaline, and of course, the guy we got now who's pretty damn good, Dan Dickerson and Jason Benetti. There's a link at the end of my column to that book. And if you care to look at it or buy it, I appreciate the support you all have given me. And find me on this wonderful show. Reach me at gicorn@yahoo.com or else on Twitter, X at SandGSports99. Back to you, Scott.
Everybody? I got everybody, right? Is that correct? Good stuff. Anything else you guys want to say about what happened in baseball? We have plenty more next week on our baseball talk.
One quick second. Tiger fans, this guy Carpenter's for real. 3 home runs he's hit tonight in the Detroit mauling of the White Sox right now. 3 home runs.
Okay, there you go. More Tiger talk from George Eichhorn. All right, very good. So we talk about Gary Carpenter, Xavier Edwards, some good young players on the rise here in Major League Baseball. We'll get into some of those later, but I'm glad you brought that up as well. So great show tonight. Enjoyed the camaraderie, enjoyed the debate with everybody when it came to Armando Gallaraga. Sister Eichhorn for bringing it up in the first place. I knew that it was going to open up a debate, but boy, it certainly got more involved, and that's what we're here all about, is to get people thinking we don't always have to agree. Our goal is to make your stimulus response, and that Gallaraga topic. Thanks to Icorn bringing it up as a reminder. Was definitely a bullseye by Mr. GE. So, with that said, on behalf of Eric Katz, Taylor Phillips, George Icorn, and Trent Clark, my name is Scott Morgan, North Motor City Badmouth. Thank you for joining us on this edition of 108 Inches Baseball Talk. And the show we did earlier, Professor of People talked about with Steve Reichel, talked about Aaron Rodgers and Hulk Hogan. And I think Hulk Hogan needs a little bit of a education how many days of the year there are. And if that isn't a good teaser to get you to watch that show that preceded us, then I don't know what is. So thanks very much for everybody joining us. Thank you very much, Jennifer Lee Cobb, Joshua Dorr, and Mickey Delaney for participating in the chat room. Shout out to all of y'all. So we'll see you next Monday, same time. Stuart Hack will be our special guest next week, and we'll be doing a lot of talking about the New York Mets. So looking forward to having Stuart on next week. Take care, everybody, and have a great week. Bye now.
Bye-bye.